Have you ever dreamt of moving out of a country or traveling abroad for greener pastures? Um, Either now, or you're thinking of it, or you're thinking of doing it in the future, only to discover that the journey is not as smooth as everyone puts it out there. Actually, it's not as smooth as you imagine it, as you have been imagining it. Today, I'll be sharing my personal story of how I relocated from Zambia to the UK as a registered nurse, and my journey will include failing the exams, not once, not twice, not thrice, and the financial struggles, homesickness, adopting to the new culture, and the moment when I felt like enough is enough, I gotta go back home. Otherwise, buckle up. My name's Abonaventure Mwale. I'm welcoming you to the Brothers Arena 25, and today I'll be sharing my personal story of how I relocated to the UK as a registered nurse, and now we will share the challenges that I faced and the lessons that I've learned through the way, and why persistence is one of the most powerful qualities a nurse can have. So, what I've done is that I've divided this into segments so that people can follow along in case you want to watch it in parts. But I'm sharing this part, but it's also in segments. So before I go any further, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on this video on my YouTube channel, which is Brothers Arena 25. I'll be very glad, guys. I've already done a couple of videos. I just did one last week where I talked about myself, what motivation has made me achieve, and all sorts of things. So I'm looking forward to you guys, obviously, liking, sharing with another nurse. And before I bore you with my introduction, let's get on. So we'll start with segment number one, my career in Zambia. So obviously, my career in Zambia, I worked as a nurse at Choma General Hospital. I started from Batoka as a volunteer and then moved to Choma General Hospital as as a registered nurse as well. So volunteering, I only did it for a few months and then I got deployed by the government. If you would want to see what happened there, you can just check on my previous video. I did explain how I moved from Lusaka to Batoka, Batoka to Choma. So I worked in Choma as a registered nurse. I worked in the NICU department, but of course, as a registered nurse, you can work in any other setups. You can work in different setups like psychiatry, you can work in surgical ward, medical ward. Sometimes, as NICU nurses, would actually help out in maternity, just for experience sake. And sometimes when they are overwhelmed, I just wanted to at least help out and learn one or two things. So that's my story. So I worked. That's my story as a nurse in Choma General Hospital. The work was very, very awesome. I really enjoyed what I was doing. So I was working in the neonatal department, but trust me, at first I didn't like the place, but as time went on, I loved working with babies. Like I enjoyed working with babies until it reached a point where I had to go to school. But before we go any further, I want to talk about why I became a nurse. One may want to find out why I became a nurse. To be honest, I didn't even think of becoming a nurse on my own. I had other things in mind, but because I got bored being at home, I decided on obviously I need to do something. I'm tired of being home. So tried to do the application, but I wasn't picked at. So I did the application. I wasn't picked in the first phase of the same intake, but in the second one. So before when I did that, I saw that time had passed. I decided anyway, I'm just gonna go and do my own things. But I'll just create a short video to talk about what happened, why I delayed to go in school, and why I ended up coming up in the second phase. Initially, I was in the first phase. I'll talk about how I ended up coming up in the second phase. So to be fair, I had no motivation because I had no motives of being a nurse or anything like that. And then when I went to school, when I started preparing, I'd actually started doing something else to do with teaching before then. When I saw things are delayed and I wanted to go to school, so I decided anyway, what I'm going to do now, I'll go into teaching. So I was almost done with the whole process of teaching. I was actually about to go to school, and then from nowhere, this thing happened, and then I was called back, so I decided to go for nursing. So went for nursing, but guess what? The backlash I got from my friends, some of them, they would come to me and tell me, "Oh, how can you do a course for females? How can you do a course for girls and everything like that?" It was very depressing and demoralizing, but I had to soldier on because I was looking at where I was coming from and what I wanted to do for myself. So I soldiered and that's what bought me the advantage to come and work on in Choma General Hospital. So during that process, as that time I was working in Choma General Hospital in the neonatal department, we started having small talks about us moving to the UK. About So I started with Jimmy, and then I talked with a few people about moving to the UK. But the actual motivation about me moving to the UK was coming from my cousin who's already in the UK, and I just wanted that life of being in the UK. So I met my partner in Choma General Hospital, and we tabled it up, and I was just like, nah. Anyway, but when you start getting paid, it's something different. There's something different about getting paid. Get me right. Kulicheka kama chinja cheka that you start thinking and you're like, oh, I'm getting paid now. Why should I even, that comfortability is what I was avoiding. So fast forward, one of my colleagues that was actually my classmate, intake mate in Livingston when I was doing my nursing, I happened to find she was working at Choma General Hospital already in the same department. So we worked together for a while, for like 2-3 years, and then she just disappeared. And the next thing I heard was she was in the UK. But by then, I was preparing to go and do a specialty in neonatology because I had loved this specialty. So went to UTH, Lusaka College of Nursing, to go and do my specialty. So did my specialty. Guess what? Everything was juicy. Everything was going on well. But I was studying while I was there. Then now reality starts kicking in. That's where we are going to talk about the segment number 2. So segment number 2, we're talking about OET challenges and failure. So I'm doing my specialty, and I have materials for OETs because I was gathering from different people, and I'm trying to go through them, but it's just like I flip the page, I forget about it, I talk about it, I motivate my friends, forget about it. But before then, we had a chat with my closest friend Jimmy about this. I did a video with him, I think one of the second or third video about we had a chat concerning all this as well. But to be fair, he's very keen to what he wants to do. So when I discussed it with him, and he discussed it with a partner, because me and Jimmy were friends, like very good friends. And then when we got partners, we had to introduce them to each other, and they became friends. So it became like a family of 4. So even when I was in Choma, I was renting a house with Jimmy. So fast forward, Jimmy puts an attempt to eat, passes on first attempt, and flies out. But the motivation comes in from Jimmy came to Lusaka, and I drove him to the airport for him to fly out, and I was very motivated. Within a shortest period of time, then his girlfriend also processed and left and joined them in the UK. So while I was in school, sat down with Madame and told Madame to say, you can also start. By then, she was I told my ex-girlfriend, now my wife, and I told her, babe, you need to start preparing while I'm still in school. So she started preparing. By the time I was completing my whole process, it was like in 2023, January, when I traveled back home. By then, my wife, now, she had already done like 80% of her process coming to the UK. Those of you that have been through this process, you know what 80% means. So she was almost leaving. So I decided, anyway, let me also start, because now I'm looking at 3 people that have gone, plus another person that has motivated me as well. And then there's a cousin of mine that is in the UK. So I had like 5 people constantly motivating me. So I was like, no, I need to do this. And then I also had one guy that I met from Lukon as well, Malambo. He also we were chatting through this process, and then he had also left, but he was also preparing to leave by the time I was going back home. So I decided shortly after I went home. So I decided, no, I need to start the process. But at this point, remember, I'm just coming back from school, so I really didn't have the finances that I needed. I really didn't have the money that I needed, like, to process, because OETs are expensive compared to IELTS. So I said, no, I'm gonna do OETs. They are simpler but expensive, but I didn't have the money. So while we were browsing with my wife and my partner before, while we were browsing, we came across something on Facebook. So there's this new professions from the UK. So it's some form of an agency. So it's called New Profession. So what it did is, we saw it. I saw the reviews about people commenting, and then at that point there were interviews that they had organized, like physical interviews in Zambia, and then there were interviews. I didn't want to do physical interviews, but we just decided to apply. So I actually emailed direct to the, where they put the manager, the what. So I emailed the manager. I said, oh, I've got intentions of coming. I'm in Zambia. I've got intentions of coming, working abroad, working in the UK. So he responded quick, and then asked me to send his CV. So send my CV to him, and then later on they replied, like 2 days after, they replied, oh no, we've allocated you an agent, so they'll prepare you for interviews. Do you want to do physical interviews, because there are some that are happening in your country, or you would want to do online? But I looked at it. I had to travel to Lusaka for physical interviews. I said, no, I want them online. So keep them online. So what I did when I was given two options. There was three actually. One trust from Liverpool, one trust from Manchester, and one trust from London. So like we had three trusts on the panel. So we sat down there. I did the interviews. After the interviews, it was just like 30 minutes. And then after the interviews, he said, oh, they'll get back to me. Shortly after, the agent calls me back and says, oh, you know what? You did well in your interviews. So it's up to you now to choose whether to get the trust in Manchester, Liverpool, or... no, actually, they said you've been picked in two. So it was Manchester, Liverpool, and London. So I said, oh, I'm going to go to Liverpool because it's close to where my partner is going to be in Manchester. So, yeah, went on. The good part is that I was picked under Mercy Care NHS Foundation Trust, which is a very good trust. It had a very good offer. So they were paying for almost everything for me. So they started first by paying for my tuition fee in OETs, and then paid for my exams. But now, this is where the challenges now start from. So because I've seen everyone flying out, they write within the shortest period of time, they're out, they do this, they're out. And I said, I can also do it in the shortest period. I didn't know what struggles people are going behind. And these are the things that people do not actually tell you about. So if you are with me up to this end, up to this point of a video, please, like I'm saying, follow Brothers Arena on YouTube, like, follow, comment, and share with others. And you'll be able to learn one or two things, and you'll be able to be motivated, and you'll be able to practice persistence. So we'll get back to the story. So now I've started the preparation. In the classes, I was doing much better, but when I did because before they recommend you for payment, I was in this class from India. So before they recommend you for exams, for the exam, they'll do a mock test. So they did a mock test with me. I didn't do very bad, but they said we would appreciate if you have to redo it. I said, no, you guys are wasting my time. I started telling myself, these guys just want to waste my time. They don't mean good for me. So I insisted and said, I want to go ahead. Of course, they said, okay, we'll recommend you. So they sent a letter to the trust and said, oh, we recommended this guy. He can do his OET exam now. Booked me in, paid, went to write the exam. Guess what? The standard they wanted was B+. I was B and B going up. I got 1B and 3 C's, not C+, C. That was a very low score. I wasn't going anywhere. But because I had that confidence that I knew what I was doing, and I failed, I said, came back home, cried for a bit, pushed again for the second trial. But the thing is that I didn't give it much space, and I didn't study much. I was up to proving them wrong, to say obviously they just mistakenly did something wrong with my papers and everything. Yo, guys. After I did that, I went to write again. same situation. Because I was working under frustration, I was working under proving people wrong. This is what happened. I failed again. Came back again, and at that point I was frustrated, I was demoralized, I lost all hope. But by then my wife had already traveled. She's now in the UK. We're only talking on phone, and then she's just there encouraging me. All the way she was just there, baby, we can do this, we can do this. So applied for the third attempt, but this time around I asked for money. I had to borrow money from my elder sister. So paid for those exams, went to write. This time around I practiced enough, and then I was very serious. So went in to write. Unfortunately, I failed reading because I was very poor in reading. So I ended up failing reading. So I was like, oh God, what am I doing again? I gave up completely. But my wife sat me down. My partner sat me down. She was like, you know what, babe, we can do this. Let's try it one more time. I said, no, I'm not doing it. In the long run, after talking for ages, she told me, you know what we can do, babe. Let me pay for you. So she paid for my exams for the fourth time. And my luckiest part was that by the time I was writing my OET exams, we were not writing them from Zimbabwe like others. My wife wrote from Zimbabwe, Jimmy wrote from Zimbabwe, Chico wrote from Zimbabwe. But me, by the time I was writing, the exams were stationed in Zambia at Nipa. So I was writing from within. So the costs were a bit higher, but not that as high as those that were traveling to Zimbabwe. So wrote anyway, so paid my exams. But at that point, I'd given up. The third time, I started praying and fasting and everything. And when I failed, I was like, maybe God doesn't want me to go. So I'm giving up. So the fourth time when my wife paid for me, I never wanted anything to do with studying. And I was just doing my own things. But my wife would check on me and she'll be like, babe, have you studied today? I'll be like, yeah, I did study. Wow, I was busy watching series. So fast forward, I was booked for a workshop. So like my exam was on a Saturday, and then on the previous week on a Friday, I get a letter from the province and saying you need to go to Eastern Province in Katete to go and attend the workshop under neonatal, because I was only neonatal nurse under Choma district at that point. So I said you need to go there and do this thing. So I said, oh, okay, cool. There was money, but I knew that next week I'll be writing exams on a Saturday. So the workshop was from Monday to Friday. So I traveled to Katete on Sunday. We started the workshop on a Monday. A lot of things went through. Happened there because I was staying in my own room. I didn't share to save money. I had to drive to Katete because I knew that when the workshop is done there, I won't have transport to come back on time. So I had to drive to Katete. Then went there, did the workshop. It was busy, packed. But when I knock off, I would go in my room, study. And I wasn't telling everyone because at this point I was embarrassed, so I didn't want anyone to know what I was doing. So anyway, of the Friday, clocked, we got done with a workshop, and then after getting done, we decided, now we need to start off. So on a Friday, I was like, we got done around 2 p.m. I said I'm starting off around 3:30. The provincial nursing officer said, no, it's not safe because of the accident. So can you start off in the morning? I said, no, I can't do it. I have to start off. That's how I drove. I had to drive that was in January. Yeah. So I drove from 3:30 p.m. and I was in Lusaka around midnight. Of course, the road was bad. I was tired. At some point, I was dozing the car to save a bit. Brought it back until I got to Lusaka. When I got to Lusaka, it was pointless for me. It was midnight. I was supposed to be at the exam center at 4. At 7. So what I did is I had to park by filling station. Those of you that are from Lusaka who know the filling station that is just next to Intercity. So parked there. Of course, while I'm in the car, the guard comes in, knocks on my door and says, oh, you know what, you can't spend the night here, it's not allowed and everything. I said, what can we do? So he said, oh no, give me. So I gave him something, you know what I mean. So that's how I spent the night there. Got my laptop, did a bit of some studying. While I was still doing some recap and everything, I dozed off, slept, woke up around 6. I couldn't go anywhere to go and shower, so just got a bottle of water, brushed my teeth, washed my face, and prepared myself, and I was out. Now, went to write the exam, but the more reason why I was actually going for that exam was not to make my wife feel bad and say, oh no, I paid for him and then he's not writing and everything like that. So I just said, let me just write the exam. So I wrote the exam, and then after I wrote the exam, came back, I drove back home, of course, but in my mind I'd already put it to say, obviously I'm gonna fail again, so I didn't even bother to check. So while I was waiting, I had to write my CBTs, like just in case anyway. So wrote my CBT exams, and then I'd done my TB exams, my TB certificate earlier on, TB test certificate earlier on. So did the CBT exam. Now the results come out. So I was on a call with my wife. We're talking, and then I just see an email pop up, oh, you've got from Pearson, blah blah blah. Checked it out, and I'd cleared the exams. Now we come to the sponsorship process. Please don't forget to like, share, and comment. So on the part where now I'm doing the sponsorship part, just after I got the results, I rang the agent. I was like, you know what, I've cleared the exams, but just remember it dragged for like a year. So when I was calling her by that time, she was just like, oh, okay, let me just find out from the trust. So she did find out from the trust and sent me some other documents to get them signed in. So when I sent to people that were supposed to sign them for me, she rings me back and said, oh, the trust says your vacancy was taken. And I'm like, wow, now this again. I started convincing myself to say, I think I'm forcing things. God doesn't want me to be there. So a bit depressed, but on a good side, my wife was coming home at that point. So I'd already planned to engage her. So I was like, obviously, and we started talking about getting married and everything. So I said, okay, if she comes in, we discuss about getting married, and then we'll do the civic center marriage, and then obviously go on her visa. So that happened. She came back home. The agent told me to say they've actually cancelled. So when there's an offer, we'll let you know. I said, okay, cool. I just understood it. But by then I'd prepared the CBTs, had all the papers apart from the OSC that is done in the UK. So fast forward, my wife comes in, I engage her, and we start processing. We did the civic center marriage, and then we started organizing the papers so that I can go on a visa. So started the process. But one day we are seated at my mother-in-law's place. We're just seated in the car outside, chatting, chilling with madam, and then all I see is an email from my agent, and she's like, oh, you know what, we found another trust for you in London. So at this point I'm like, okay, if there's a trust in London that will sponsor me, I can go to London. At least we'll be in the same country with my wife. I'll be traveling obviously to see her. It's a long distance, but I'll be traveling to see her in Manchester, and which is better. So discussed it with my wife, and then she said, oh no, it's okay, actually we can go through this route. So she sent me the other bunch of papers to sign in. There's a lot of paperwork, guys. So sent me another bunch of papers to sign. While I was trying to start that one, she rings me and says, you know what, your trust has just rang me and said they've opened a vacancy for you, so you need to go. If only you can complete the process in a month and some weeks. I said, I'll do anything that I can. So we closed all the processes that we wanted to do with madam. My wife traveled back. I remained alone. Now she sent me the visa papers. So started doing the application, went in for visa interviews, and then left my passport there. So the trust had to pay for express because they wanted me to be in the UK, because that was happening in February. But so it was happening in February, and then I needed to be there in March. So I was like, okay, let's get on. So after all these processes, the whole process has been done now. I'm just waiting for the visa. We discover that my TB test are almost expiring. So called the place that you do them from, and they tell me, you know what, we can book you for the next 1 month. I said, I can't do that. So the lady I spoke to said, oh, just give me time and then we'll see if we can find a slot since you already had them done. So went through the process again, did the TB tests, and then I was done. I was just waiting for my COS now. So anyway, COS comes out. Well, then you use the COS to apply for your visa, and then the visa. At that point, I was just waiting for the visa. So while I was waiting for my visa, I traveled back to Choma from Lusaka. So I'm in Choma. Everything is going all juicy. Actually, on my way, I get a call to say, it was on Friday, I get a call to say, are you still in Lusaka? I'm like, I'm on my way. Oh. And they said, oh, actually, your passport and your visa is out. I was like, oh my God, I need to travel. So looking at the distance I had covered, I couldn't go back because I wouldn't find the offices open. So just made an appointment for Monday. So went to Choma on Monday, went back. In my mind, I was like, okay, since this is the process, I still have more time. Now we are in March. I was like, oh, I still have more time. Think about in the first or second week of March. I was like, I still have more time. Went to get that visa. Then had to send a pic to my agent. And then the next thing, so I sent a copy and then started driving back home. And the next thing I see is she sends me a text to say, you know what? I've booked your air ticket. I was like, what's happening? She said, oh no, I'm booking your air ticket for the next 4 days. So I've given you 3 days to prepare. On Friday, that was on a Monday. And she said, on Friday, you need to be on the flight. On Thursday, actually, you need to be on a flight coming to the UK. I was like, oh, is this thing getting real? By then, I had not even told my mom to say I told them the first time I went to write, the second time, the third time. The third time, I didn't tell them, and the fourth time. So they didn't know. So I drove home, gave mom a surprise and said, you know what, mom? I'm actually going to the UK on Thursday. She didn't believe it. And dad, if it's dad, he was just looking at me and thinking I was joking. But anyway, I had a lot to do now because I had not packed. I needed to prepare. I needed to shift from my old house to take things to mom's place. So went to mom's house, went to my landlord's house and told them to say, oh, I'll be shifting. They were very good people. They knew my wife. They knew me. So they said, oh, you know what? We are blessing you guys. And then they didn't want me to go through all this. What do you call it? Is it 3 months, 1 month notice? So that night we packed everything with my cousin and my young brother. Took the things to my mom's place. Got a few bags. Drove to Lusaka. When I got to Lusaka, called my parents, told them to on Wednesday you should come to Lusaka so to see me off because obviously I'm the first person to fly out in my family. So quick fast forward, they travel in. I'd already prepared a few things. Guess what? It was the whole family because by then I had already done the civic center marriage with my wife. So my mother-in-law was supportive as well. My family, they came in to see me out. So I went to the airport for the first time, excited. Got on the plane. I was flying with Emirates from Lusaka to Birmingham. So obviously there was a layover in Ethiopia. No, in Dubai. Sorry. So flew out on Thursday. I was in Birmingham on Saturday morning. My partner was already there waiting for me, so it was a good thing seeing her. She did welcome me in. We got everything that we needed, prepared everything that we needed, and then we drove to Derby. But the thing was that the trust had arranged transport for me from Birmingham to Derby, which is like an hour drive. An hour 30, depending on the traffic. So we hopped into the transport. I was in Derby where I was given an accommodation. So the trust policy was they gave me accommodation for 3 months. So first month was in Derby. So in Derby, that's where now we come up, we talk about another segment where the sponsorship, the other part of the sponsorship. So they had to pay for me the OET tuitions, the OSC tuitions, and then also paid for me my OSC exam. So when we got to Derby with my partner, she remained at a hotel. We went together to the new accommodation where I found two friends. So they were all from Nigeria. Very good guys. they're the ones that became my study mates, because we're in the house, same house. So when we go for lessons, when we come back, we'll sit down, recap whatever we've learned, and then help each other here and there, and then back again. So after that, we stayed, because it was on Friday, so we are resuming class on a Monday. So Saturday, Sunday, I was just there, chilling, having a good time, seeing the UK, the weather. I had not even carried more warm clothing, so my wife had to take me to one of the stores to buy me warm clothing, because I was like, oh, isendisenjomba ise ndisevampamvu ise tikwanisa Juni mchoma, what more mpepo ya kubazungu. It's a small issue, but when I got here, it was a different picture. That is one of them. Weather. It was raining, guys. From Birmingham, I couldn't see the sun for 2 straight days. No sun. On Monday morning, my wife went back to Manchester. I remained in Derby, where I did my lessons for a month, and then we were booked in for an exam. So the exam was in Newcastle at is it Northumbria University? I can't really recall, but I wrote the exam. I did very well, to be honest, but I was shaking because, guys, I don't like practicals. I'm always shaking. So when I was doing my medication my medication station, due to my shivering, I dropped something, so I ended up failing that station. But when we wrote, because it was 1 month, so we wrote the exam, then they just arranged transport for me to move from Derby, to Southport, where I was now going to be stationed, because that's where my hospital is. So went there. I was given accommodation for 2 months. Then after 2 months now, they actually helped us through the process of acquiring accommodation on your own, because obviously there's a lot of paperwork that you need to do. So I acquired my accommodation on my own. Actually, we paired in with my friend. I found one guy from Zimbabwe who had come in a month earlier than me. So we paired in and then rented a 2-bedroom apartment. So we stayed there. And that's where now everything started kicking in, because now homesickness came in, cultural adjustments came in, missing family. The food is not the same from home. You have to find Shima, like us who believe in Shima. You can't call the family on direct numbers. You have to use WhatsApp, and network can be a bit terrible back home sometimes, depending on your area. So communication was a bit terrible. But obviously, through all these struggles, my wife was my backbone. Like, she was there. She would encourage me. She would take me through. Sometimes I was depressed to a point that I was feeling, you know what, I want to go home. I want to go back home. But I looked at what I'd gone through and said, I'm going to make it here. So obviously, missing family routines, or friends' routines, where in Choma General Hospital, if I knock off from work, I'll go and chill with some other guys somewhere else. Or maybe but here, you go for work 7:30, you knock off 8:30 in the evenings, and then you go straight home. You work for 3 days, obviously. After 3 days, you've got 4 days off. In that 4 days off, ask me, you can't meet even the friends that you know from home. They are all working on, I'm doing a shift, I'm doing an extra shift, this and this. So you end up being bored alone, and that's where homesickness comes in. I call my wife. Sometimes my wife would come in, we chat. Sometimes I go to Manchester if I'm off. So all that going around, and I started feeling maybe this is not my thing, I need to go back. But I had to soldier on. And at this point, I couldn't spend a lot, because we were preparing for our wedding now, a white wedding back home. So we were saving a lot with my partner. And then, that phase passed. I had to fit in, got used. Of course, the workplace was different, the systems were different, but I learned, because the staff on the ward, on one of my wards, Pine Ward, these guys, they were very helpful. Like, these guys were top notch. They were helping me everything that I needed. Of course, I had difficulties with language, because these guys speak pure Scouser language. Those are in Liverpool and know what Scouser. People who speak Scouser, it's difficult to understand them. But anyway, with time, I got used and I learned how to understand them. So things now started coming up and they started looking bright. I knew when to call these people and everything, the family home. So now everything is put in place, and now I'm okay. I'm settled, and now my life is moving. And then I sit down now. I had to record to say, what lessons have I learned through this whole process. What lesson? Because what is important in this whole story is for you to understand what lessons I learned. So let's talk about lessons. All along, you should remember that I've failed OET 3 times. I have failed OSC once. I had So I've failed those things, but I was at the verge of giving up, but I wasn't. I was pushing persistence, and that's why I'm saying persistence is one of the values a nurse should have. So my persistence was working. So the lessons that I learned that I want one person, obviously someone out there to learn, is number one, persistence wins, is what I'll tell you. What I mean by persistence wins, me failing OETs 3 times taught me that setbacks are not the end. Get this right. Me failing OETs 3 times taught me that setbacks are not at all the end. Lesson number 2, preparation matters. If you followed me to this end, you would know now that there's a point that I had to study because of frustration. There's a point where I had to study because I wanted to prove someone. There's a time that I involved God, but because it was just at gunpoint, so it was more like I'm involving God when I just want to. You get what I mean? So at the end of it all, I had to succeed. Number 3, support systems are important. It cannot be your wife. But you have to find support system. Me, I had support system from my family members, to be honest. My sister did sacrifice her money to send me. Mom was every time praying for me, my sisters, my brothers, and everyone. But to be fair, I didn't want to stress them that much, but because I was very free with my partner, I would always cry to my partner. When I mean cry, like just have a conversation, complain, and she would encourage me over and over and tell me to say, babe, we can do this. Babe, we can do this. We can do this. That's why I'm saying support systems are very important. Identify support systems, guys. Then lesson number 4, to close up, growth requires discomfort. Growth requires discomfort. What do I mean by this? If you are growing, if you want to grow, guys, you need to move out of the comfort zone. So me leaving my country, leaving home, and adapting to the new country, rebuilding my life in that country, which is the UK, was very, very, very uncomfortable. Let me not lie. However, I ended up discovering that that's where growth was happening. My uncomfortability was yielding growth. So that's where growth happened. So don't forget, persistence wins. One of the values that a nurse should have. Preparations matters. You have to prepare for everything, and you should always be prepared to say things can go in a different way. Things can go east or west. Number 3, support systems, very important. It cannot be your partner, but you have to find support system. It can be your reverend, it can be your pastor, whoever that you think can help you or can support you. It's very important when you're preparing for these things. Then number 4, growth requires discomfort, of which that's the thing that I went through. So through the process of growth, I subjected myself to discomfort, and then growth happened, and now I'm used in this system now. I'm okay. Like, God is with us. We are having a good time. So if you are currently just your take-home message, if you're currently preparing for OETs, CBT, OSCE exams, or considering to move to the UK, my message is simple: don't give up. Your journey may take longer than expected. However, in that journey, you may still encounter setbacks. But like I said, persistence pays off. It will win and it will pay you off. And to everyone that has been with me on this channel, Brothers Arena 25, thank you for listening. And I'm encouraging you, if you watch this, share it with someone who's going to share it with another person. Share this episode so that 1 or 2 people can be helped. There are obviously people out there that are planning to go through this process, or maybe there are some of them that are in the process, because obviously it's not only the UK that we are talking about. There's Australia, there's Canada, there's USA. There are processes there. There are similar processes. So if you take my message of persistence wins, preparation matters, support system is important, growth need for you to growth requires discomfort. If you take these points, it's going to help you. So what I can just ask from you at this point is share this episode and comment, like, most of all, guys, subscribe to this channel, and we will be learning and teaching each other different things. So for now, it's a bye, and let's look forward to the next episode, which will be aired next obviously in a couple of weeks time. Otherwise, to Brothers Arena, thank you and bye.